Yeah, I should win just because you had the Timberwolves in the 8th seed.
Vasilevsky's been playing really well, and the Lightning have a great offense.
Yeah, it was a tremendous shot, and I've come to expect it from LeBron, who's become one of the clutchest players in NBA history as of recently.
So I have him going off one night, but I think he's just going to get tired. So that's why the Nets winning in 5.
I would say I wish the best for the Red Sox, but as a Yankees fan, that's really hard for me to do.
The biggest addition to me is Jalen Brunson.
Both teams that beat the Rangers are rebuilding faster than the Rangers.
Why'd you have to name them? Like, seriously. Thanks, man. To me, those top 2 starters are Lucas Giolito and Lance Flynn.
Kaprizov and the rest of this crew. Jordan Greenway, who doesn't get enough props. He definitely is somebody who needs to be mentioned more. I definitely think it's going to be a great series, and I'm interested to see how much Kaprizov can impact the game as a rookie.
How is Joe Burrow going to get the ball to them if his butt is already on the ground when he finally decides who to throw to?
Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, and that's all I have to say. He's still a top 5 quarterback in this league, and there's nothing really anyone can do about it.
All I could think of was Dame.
I don't think they will. If they don't have Anthony Davis, I'm saying it right now, if Anthony Davis is out for the playoffs, they don't make it out of the first round.
And then I want to talk about the Fernando Tatis extension, because that really surprised me. Because he's so young.
The Hurricanes just have too much. They're probably the most complete team this year, and I anticipate them winning.
You know what this means, Bengals. Take the nice one. Do not let what happened to Andrew Luck happen to Joe Burrow.
Clippers versus the Nets. Who would have thought 5 years ago that the Clippers and Nets would be facing in the finals?
But I have the Sixers versus Jazz.
Crazy. And for the fans at home, for the listeners at home.
Hello, I'm Cy Mendenhall, and you're listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our 65th episode, as our 64th episode was the last episode, which was when we talked about last year's rookie quarterback seasons and reviewed it and then gave our own predictions. We put the yards exactly, touchdowns, interceptions, and sprinkled in a little bit of a rushing touchdown prediction. So make sure to go check out that episode. But of course, everyone's worried about it right now is the NBA West just finished with the Mavs and Clippers. So we're going to do our West review and then do a preview as the game starts in a few hours between the Suns and Nuggets. That's going to be a great series. But the point total is I only got 3 points from my West predictions because I had the Mavs winning in 7. That was close. I had that, and then I had Portland winning, and then I had Portland winning, and then I had the Lakers winning. Pivotal matchups, but I still I think there's time for me to come back. But Austin got 9 because he had the Suns winning, he had the Clippers winning, and he had Denver winning. So he got 9. So the total is 10 points and then 16. So Austin is in the lead. So Austin, I will let you start on the first series we have.
Yeah, so the first series we will be discussing is less than interesting one. Jazz in 5. I know the Grizzlies took game 1, but Donovan Mitchell was out. I made a big point of emphasis when Kevin and I were talking off air. And I was totally confident that the Jazz were going to pull through. And they did. They won in 5 games. They are a very important team to your prediction, Kevin. And if they lose this next round to the Clippers, who I need to win, it's not looking good. What did you think?
Yeah, it's very true about what you said about Donovan Mitchell. And then the Grizzlies played really well. They played rough every game, and it's definitely a good learning experience for them. And they do have a nice young core. You got Brooks, Desmond Bane played really well. I know in game 1, and then just good rebound. And then when Donovan Mitchell came, the Jazz started getting well. But I'll talk more about this when we preview the Jazz versus Clippers game. I think Conley's health is going to be very interesting. But they probably got a long layoff because the Clippers game went so long, so maybe the hamstring got a little bit better. It's definitely not totally healed. But I would say the series was just about as interesting as except outside of the Hawks and Knicks Knicks series. Probably just as interesting as every East series we saw because those all ended in 5. And then this just goes to show the West, or no, am I
Yeah, the
wrong?
Heat
Was there one game?
series ended in 4.
Oh, okay.
That one was the
But
least
the max was
interesting by
5.
far.
What? Okay. But just like the West was so good because just the West was so competitive, and that shows the disparity between two conferences. But we can talk about Portland versus Denver, and I had Portland winning, and I just didn't see a second star coming up for the Nuggets, but Michael Porter did that in the seal of the game, seal the series in the very beginning. He was started out for 6 for 6. But what were your thoughts on this series?
Yeah, so I think Portland has a new name. They're not the Portland Trailblazers. They're the Portland Dame Dollas now. I mean, they just were a team that was ruled by Dame. Like, I don't know what else to say. He broke the record for the most threes in an NBA game with 12. He did everything he could, and CJ McCollum and crew really could not come through. You think Carmelo would put up more points. You think Yusuf Nurkic would put up more points. You think CJ would put up more points, but no. Jokic, who should be the MVP, carried his team throughout without Jamal Murray. I really think this shows why he should be MVP. We're not even talking about the fact that Will Barton, another starter for the Nuggets, has been out for the majority of the season. It's just impressive what Jokic is doing, and Jokic is playing like some Mavs fans expected KP should. But we'll see what happens there too. What else did you think?
Wow, 5 minutes in, you just had it. Less than 5 minutes in, you had to hit me with that shot. I've had a day to recover. It's still gonna take some time. But yeah, Jokic was incredible. I wish I could say I saw like the incredible game, like game 4, but I don't own NBA TV, so the like 50 people that do.
I have
Congrats
YouTube TV,
on
so
your
I
big-
get NBA TV for free. So I got to saw the performance. And Game 5 was
But I
also
get Valley
amazing. Went to double
Sports.
OT, and that's the game that Dame broke all the records, and they ended up losing in double or triple overtime after Dame hit 2 step back game tires in regulation and overtime, and ended up losing the game. And all I could do was laugh, as it definitely was not Dame's fault. Like we said before, we hope Dame stays. He's a very loyal individual, and I hope Portland keeps him. But I mean, they have to do something to remain contenders. They haven't been back to the Western Conference Finals since 2019 when they went, and it's been a long road back as they've only in 5 of the last 6 years they've lost in the first round. So besides that one trek to the Western Conference Finals, they really haven't done anything, and that's why Stotts got fired.
Yeah, very. That's going to be definitely a good head coaching position to see because you mentioned Jason Kidd, Dame mentioned Jason Kidd, but then Jason Kidd's like he took himself out of it, so that's very
Yeah, and I think
interesting.
it's because of the tampering scandal. You don't want to be you're not allowed to talk to the coaches beforehand, I believe, and so I think Jason Kidd was just avoiding tampering because I know that some players like I want you as the head coach before you're allowed to hire a head coach, and so the league may fine you for tampering, and Jason Kidd just like I don't want to get that, and also I just feel like he's taking all of his options and keeping them open besides Portland, and I think he has the opportunity to become like a Steve Nash. We'll have to see what happens. I don't think he was given a fair chance at Brooklyn or with the Bucks, who he led them to a couple playoff performances before he was released. And while I don't think he is going to have the same amount of success as Steve Nash, just because of the team Steve Nash is at the helm of, we'll have to see what happens. But I think we can move on to the next series.
Yeah, and that would be the Suns versus Lakers. And I think there's still like it was during our power rankings. You said if Anthony Davis is not healthy, Lakers do not get out of the first round. I think that remains true. So very far out. It's in multiple of our intros because Anthony Davis was not healthy. And what are your thoughts on because you could definitely tell in the final game that Anthony Davis should not have been playing, but he was still trying to tough it out. What are your thoughts on that?
He tried, but he only played like 5 minutes and then was out. He really did not show out. he because of his injuries, and he never got healthy, and that's really what it was. I think another person we had to talk about that was similar injury-wise is Chris Paul, but Chris Paul is much more of a leader than Anthony Davis is. Anthony Davis doesn't hold much weight in the locker room. It's LeBron's locker room. Anthony hasn't done anything really before LeBron like LeBron has done before Anthony Davis. So the weight that Chris Paul holds in the locker room is so much more, and I really think he's the addition to this team that was needed for them to take the next step. Chris Paul, even though he did only average 9 points and 7.7 assists, it didn't shoot all that great from the field. I believe his voice in the locker room gave the vote of confidence to not only Devin Booker, but DeAndre Ayton, Cameron Payne, Cameron Johnson. I'm really impressed by the Suns. Jay Crowder is another guy that's been to a finals last year with the Heat, and has played well so far these playoffs, especially defensively speaking. And so I'm excited to see how far these Suns make it. I remember my prediction. I had them going to the Western Conference Finals against the Clippers, I believe. So I need a Chris Paul performance, but for that to happen, he needs to remain healthy. What do you think?
Yeah, very true. And then, of course, the Lakers getting out is getting a lot of national hype and whatever. But the Suns played really great. I think if it was anyone else besides the Lakers, I probably would have had the Suns winning. It was just I couldn't get bet against LeBron as he was 14-0 until this series in the first round. And then Devin Booker was just incredible. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, you really struggle with going against the norm. I know you had that problem with Aaron Rodgers. You were a Cowboys fan, said, I can't go against Aaron Rodgers, and then I go against Aaron Rodgers and I win. And then you say you can't go against LeBron, and then I go against LeBron and I win. So I mean, it's just you gotta take it a series by series evaluation. I know a ton of people like you made the same mistake. They're like, it's LeBron, he can't lose in the first round. I'm like, well, the Lakers are just worse. They're just the worst team. They're not to say they're bad, but the Suns just had a beat on them the entire season. They had a young star in Devin Booker who's going to put up a ton of points in some of the games, and they had a leader in Chris Paul that was determined to get his first ring this season. So we'll see what happens, but I think I made the right choice, and obviously it turned out to be true.
And then to go back to that, but when you say I can't bet against Tom Brady wins the Super Bowl for you.
There's a difference between Tom Brady and everybody else who's ever lived. So,
well, I think my problem is with LeBron. Like, maybe he's still mad about 2011, and the Mavs just.
Well, LeBron's like Aaron Rodgers. Some people say they're both goats, but we all know who the real goat is. You don't bet against the goat. You can.
That's true. LeBron is not. The
you
goat.
can't. People are like Aaron Rodgers, and I love Aaron Rodgers, one of the greatest talented QBs. And people are like, "Oh, he's the goat because of how much talent he has." But you never bet against the goat, and I didn't. And well, there's no goat in the game right now, so everybody's at odds to my predictions. So we'll have to see what happens. But I think the Lakers will be fine next year, especially if Anthony Davis can remain healthy. Maybe they trade him and Kawhi comes in. I don't know what really happens. They could trade for Kyle Lowry. I mean, there's a ton of moves that could happen. They could trade for Pascal. I mean, it's really confusing what may happen. Kawhi could opt out of his deal this year and then join the Lakers. Anything can happen, really. And I think it's going to be crazy. LeBron's going to be very adamant this offseason winning another title. I know some people thought that LeBron was going to three-peat or something like that. It's just not come to fruition. And while he is one of the greatest players of all time, he just couldn't muster a first-round series win. I think that's overrated. You can't say that a first-round series win is better than well, like, here's my thing. If you lose a title, you lose a title. But if you got to a title, I think that should count more. More finals appearance, more stuff like that. But people say, oh, LeBron's never lost a first-round series, but he's missed the playoffs. I don't understand the difference. If you miss the playoffs, that's a first-round series loss. That's like the Heat this year. The Heat won as many first-round games as, like I said, the Detroit Pistons, the Minnesota Timberwolves. I mean, you're right there. I mean, it's just I don't really understand the notion. If you make it to the finals, you should get, even if you lose, you should get more leeway than for some reason people think it's the same as not going to the finals at all. It's confusing when it comes to GOAT debates, but I mean, winning titles are winning titles, and LeBron didn't win one this year. So I think we can move on to the next series, which definitely had some of the best performances by two players in particular on opposing sides. But it seems like the one who performed better in Game 7 just couldn't get a help from a tall white guy.
A 7'3" guy who got out-rebounded. How tall is Batum?
Batum's probably 6'9".
Okay, Batum out-rebounded Porzingis. Like, I was screaming at my TV. I think even, oh man, Terrence Mann got a rebound over Porzingis. I don't know. Some guy who should not be getting a rebound got a Porzingis over.
It says on
Got
Basketball
over.
Reference that Nick Batum's 6'8", but in shoes he's probably 6'9".
Okay. Still, that's like 4. That's 5. That's 4 inches.
Yeah.
4 inches over.
And I thought Boban
like,
played really
can't
well.
be.
If we're going to go out there, Boban shot efficiently from the field. He also had a block, and some of those foul calls were on him. Were not fouls at all, but I don't think that changed a 15-point win by the Clippers. They needed better shooting from everybody besides Dorian and Luka. So Dorian played very well. Tim Hardaway, I believe, could have played better. I don't know if he had to go to the bathroom or something. It looked like he hurt his ankle, and then you watch the replay, and I don't think he hurt his ankle. I don't really know what happened, but I mean, the Clippers were impressive. They made everything, it seemed like. They really could not miss, and that really shows the lack of defensive ability by the Mavs. You really think back to the Seth Curry trade, and Jay Rich, just the defensive guy you wanted, just wasn't playing, one, and for two, he wasn't playing good defense when he came in. They really could have used that 3-point scoring of Seth Curry this game, and we'll really have to see what happens. It always seems like the Mavs get rid of Curry, and then they're like, oh, wait, we want him back. So we'll have to see what happens. What are your thoughts on the series?
Yeah, Kawhi was just incredible. Paul George was better than like the Paul George in the last season, series playoffs, last playoff series, just in general. And like that's like we saw the Clippers do well in the regular season, but the main thing is how are you going to perform in the postseason? I think this kind of like there are Clippers fans celebrating Game 7. Like y'all were supposed to win, and the Luka dragged the Mavs here, and with a couple role players shining some moments. But Kawhi in Game 6 was just incredible. Like it was the fourth. He took over the fourth quarter, and then he took over the second half in Game 7. So really showing his determination as he wants this to all work. And I think this would definitely affect his legacy if when he built this team last year and this year if he doesn't make the finals last year, I think it's going to put a big mark on this series, this time of the Clippers in their history, because like they traded a lot to bring this together, and they definitely didn't live up to it last season, and then this season it's still to be figured out. And then this is a huge offseason for the Mavericks because this is the last offseason where Luka will still be on his rookie contract. So, and KP, I think my best analogy is for him. Luka is Batman, and KP, who I said could be Batman, I don't know what's changed since last season to this season. And it's just like he's completely fallen off and not living up to the contract because this series showed that the Mavs need a second star. The problem is the guy who's supposed to be the second star is not acting like the second star. And then he's taking over center. And like you mentioned Boban, Boban is Boban, and he did well given the circumstances. And he was in there because the Mavs were just getting killed in the paint all like the first 4 games because they put Boban in 5. But my best analogy is Luka's Batman. He's the Christian Bale Batman. And then in The Dark Knight, there's this famous scene. And if you haven't seen The Dark Knight, you should watch it. And then if you have seen it, go watch it again and recognize this clip. KP is the Batman very beginning where they're in hockey pads impersonating the real Christian Batman. So what are your thoughts on my analogy and what all I said?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a good analogy. I don't know who Christian Batman is, but I know you meant Christian Bale.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's true. I mean, the Mavs didn't have crazy injuries this year. I mean, we can compare Bradley Beal and Luka this year. Both averaged over 30 points per game in the playoffs this year. Were the main scorer, but because for Brad's incidents, his second star was injured. Westbrook continuously got injured, and his other starters like Deni Adviha and Thomas Bryant were hurt. So he was really by himself trying to get all the points. And I know that series went 5, but that's because Westbrook was injured and was shooting some of the worst he's ever shot in his career. If we go to the Mavs, Luka was out there by himself. If you watch any of the Wizards games or any of the Mavs games, I can tell you they were basically the same thing, except I think there was better role player performances on the Mavs than there was for the Wizards. But Luka and Brad were the only two main scorers on their teams, and they really were the ones pushing the ball down the court. I know Luka averaged more assists, but he shot 42% from the free throw line. But which really is the only thing he needs to fix is terrible free throw shooting, which really is what Bradley Beal fixed this year. He shot almost 90%. I don't know if he shot 90. 88.9. Yeah, so almost 90% from the free throw line. And that's really what Luka has to fix. And Brad needs to get a little bit better at his 3-point scoring off ball, which Luka absolutely excels at. But those stars are very similar. And I'm a big Wizards fan, so I had to include that in there. But Luka needs some help, and so does Bradley Beal. We'll have to see what happens. I think neither of them will be traded, even though a lot of people are talking about how Bradley Beal needs to be traded. I think that's nonsensical talk. People are acting like Bradley Beal's really old. He's 27. And Luka's even younger. He's 22, I believe. So, I mean,
Yeah, he's 22.
And
yeah, that's a good comparison because that's very true. It's just you mentioned Tim Hardaway. He's a guy I'm not sure if he's going to come back, and I just don't know what the Mavs do with Kristaps. I guess you just live with it, but you do have some money. So that's just my thing. And then conditioning could be my thing for Luka. But this, I don't know, I just don't want to talk about Luka in my first thing because Luka carried the Mavs to this 7-game series. But his fourth quarter points, if you look him up, is not good. Like he got all, but that's just because of conditioning. He just needs to work well on some stuff, and then free throw shooting, of course, is what he needs to work on. What do you got?
I think another reason is that Rick Carlisle sits him at the beginning of the fourth quarter. He can't continue his rhythm. I don't think it's intelligent to sit him at the beginning of the fourth quarter. I would actually sit him between 10 and 8 minutes in the fourth quarter, those 2 minutes, the 10-minute mark to the 8-minute mark, instead of the 12 to 10, so that he can get his rhythm down, come sit for a couple minutes, and at any point you can bring him back in early if needed. But if you start him being sad, especially in close games, it doesn't bring the confidence. I know the last game, because they were down by 15, they had to start him, but for the rest of the series, they weren't starting him at the fourth quarter. And I just don't believe that's an intelligent move. I would sit him between the 10 and 8 mark or the 8 and 6 mark, or not sit him at all and just sit him more in the third and second quarter, because the fourth quarter is the most important quarter, and you have to make sure that he is not only in rhythm, which is a very important thing in basketball, but also is obviously rested, like you said. He can't be playing too much, but the fourth quarter is the most important quarter. And while he did have 46 points last night, he scored 4 or 6 in the third quarter. And I know he scored like 10 or 11 or 12 in the fourth, but most of those came at the end of the game when it didn't really matter too much. And he was hitting some outstanding threes that are being matched by Reggie Jackson. But I think we can go back to my prediction. I really believe this was the year for the Mavs. I had them being third. I thought Kristaps was going to take the next step, and even though I don't really like his game as much, and I hated that they were playing up the 5 spot because of Dwight Powell's absence, and they learned in the playoffs they couldn't put him at 5 because he's not a 5. But we'll have to see what happens. The year of the Mavs didn't happen as I predicted, and we'll have to, like I said, we'll have to see. But I think we can go on to the next round unless you have something else to say.
Well, one more thing. Just to talk about Luka, I agree. I would like him to start the fourth and hopefully play the full fourth quarter and just rest him in the third and rest him in the second. So those are my thoughts on that. And I would like to you need another score because like game 5, Luka was out of 31 out of the 37 total field goal shots were all like either were shots shot by Luka or shots created by Luka off an assist. So they really need to find a guy that can score on his own without needing Luka, but can also be on the court with Luka and not just be totally absent, which was supposed to be Porzingis, but that's not working out. But yeah, we can move on to the second round, to the Jazz versus Clippers. I'm very excited because do you think the Clippers go small against the Jazz?
No, I do not. It depends on what he believes injury wise, if Serge Ibaka will be back for this series or not. But I don't anticipate full small ball like we saw. Um, Rudy Gobert's a really good defender. I believe that he'll have the ability at least to guard someone at the perimeter. And it's impossible, I think, for one of their guards to cut inside. So I think they will have to have at least one big man in there. They won't go completely small ball. I could see 4 small ball guys and then Serge Ibaka or Zubac or another big man on their team. But I don't expect fully small ball.
And I do feel if the Clippers did do small ball, the Jazz probably wouldn't be in a zone like the Mavs did when the Clippers went small ball for them. But I'm very intrigued to see how it's probably that's why I think it's going to be Zubac versus Gobert. That's going to be very tough. And then just can the Jazz do well against the Clippers, and will we see? Because Paul George just had some good games, but he had a couple of costly turnovers. I wish the Mavs would have capitalized on them, but in Game 6 and 7.
Yeah, I know
So
George had
that's
4 turnovers in last game, I believe. So yeah, they definitely should have taken advantage of the turnovers that happened.
And then Conley's health is a thing that I'm very intrigued because I feel the Jazz could pull it off, just because I think they have a lot more star power or better role players, and I'm very interested to see if Kennard keeps playing. And I think if Serge comes back for the Clippers, that will greatly increase their chances. But it's a little scary about what's wrong with Serge's health right now.
True.
I think we can move on to. I think this is going to be another great matchup: the Suns versus Nuggets. I think the Suns pull this off just because you have Chris Paul and Devin Booker. You also have Ayton, and I'm not sure who steps up beside to help Jokic. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I had the Suns here just because of all the injuries. I don't know what Will Barton's time frame, and I know Jamal Murray's out obviously for the season. They're going to need some big turnarounds from guys like Paul Millsap. He's going to have to go back into his old ways, some sort of. And then obviously MPJ is going to need great series for them to have a chance. So I'm taking the Suns here as I did in my initial prediction, but we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be great. And then our next episode will be probably reviewing the second round of the NHL. So, and make sure to check out our interviews. Make sure to check out Jeff Allen's podcast, who is the person we interviewed, and he announced that podcast on our interview. Great insights. And thank you for listening to Outsiders Opinions.